Tony Hawk's Underground is a skateboarding game that was developed by Neversoft, published by Activision and released on the PlayStation 2, Xbox and Gamecube in October of 2003. It was the fifth entry in the incredibly popular skating series and went on to sell close to 3 million copies while also being a big hit with the critics. Underground was the first big departure from the usual Tony Hawk formula, and instead of the familiar setup of working your way through a number of levels by completing challenges, this game's new structure provided more of an open world to explore, characters to interact with, and crazy stunts to perform. Underground opens up with you creating your character, another new feature at the time, and begins with you and your friend Eric looking to impress a famous professional skater who is visiting your town. After catching the eye of Chad Musker, he stops to compliment your skills and then gives you some advice on how to make it big. You then make your way over to the local skate store in an attempt to get sponsored, and the owner tells you that you need to do something big if you want to make it as a pro. It is here that our game really begins, as the story from this point forward follows you and your friend Eric travelling all over the country, trying to find bigger and better ways to increase your popularity and hopefully make it into the big leagues. The story is okay, I guess, but the fact that they managed to work in a solid narrative into a game about skateboarding is impressive in itself. Plus, there's actually a few twists and turns towards the tail end of the game which do make things interesting. As far as gameplay goes, the core of Tony Hawk, which is fast-paced, tight-controlled skateboarding, is still here. There are plenty of flips and tricks and manuals and reverts to perform, and a good balance of risk versus reward, with the more complex tricks requiring a good amount of precision and reflexes for a bigger score, but you do risk crashing to the ground and killing your combo if you fail. Obviously, in comparison to some of the later entries in the series, this game may feel a bit rigid at times, but after a small readjustment period to the controls, you'll be pulling all sorts of tricks in no time. One more new addition to the game is the way in which your skills develop. In previous titles, you'd earn XP and spend it on whichever talent you wish to improve, such as airtime, speed, or grinding. In this title, however, your skills develop on your playstyle, and whichever moves you perform the most is most likely where your attributes will be the strongest. The areas in which you skate are more open urban environments such as small towns, big cities, and college campuses. While they aren't actually skate parks, every inch of this world is littered with things that you can jump off or over, and you can pretty much grind on everything in sight. Try saying that with a straight face. If you wanted to, you could just mess around in each level until your heart's content, but in order to progress, you have to interact with the characters in this world and either do them a favour, complete a task, or wow them with your skating skills. Reaching a high score within a time limit is challenging but fun. Going on fetch quests gives you a good opportunity to explore the areas, and there are even some missions in which you drive vehicles which looks ridiculous in motion, but they're so silly and over so quickly that you won't really care. Tony Hawk games have always been an experience of trial and error, and this title is no different. While you may on occasion want to throw your controller at the wall after failing something for the 11th time, when reloading to the beginning of a challenge, you'll be back at the start within milliseconds, so it's easy to just keep pushing on. The sheer variety of tasks within the game is refreshing, and although some are designed better than others, it's hard to complain about a game that offers such an experience in which you genuinely have no idea what you're going to be doing next. For example, in the first hour or so, I had taken part in a high score competition, drifted a sports car around a town, and retrieved a lady's handbag from the roof. All of this is really, really stupid, but in a way that makes you shrug and say, sure, why not, instead of looking puzzled at your screen. Now, where Underground does let itself down, in my opinion, is its visuals. The game has aged, which doesn't mean it looks dreadful. In fact, when in motion, you really don't notice the flaws at all, but when you slow down, and especially when you're up close and personal with some of the characters, I wouldn't blame you for thinking that this is a really nice looking game for the PS1. Of course, this is a game where gameplay is the absolute priority, and I agree with that approach, but I actually winced at some of the poor and stretched textures shown in this game. I didn't even create my own character's face. It was a pre-built template that I ran with, and I think it says a lot about your game when your main character looks like he should be in the crowd of an old SmackDown game. A lot of this game looks quite jagged, which I suppose is a design choice to convey which structures can be grinded on, but a good amount of the game's visuals look noticeably rough today, in a way that was slightly distracting for me if I'm honest. In addition to this, while the animation of the skating tricks is snappy and sharp, the animation of every other motion looks unnatural, and don't even get me started on how cars move. Let's just not talk about that at all. I do have to give praise to the game's soundtrack. While all of it isn't my cup of tea, it does add to the vibe of the game by giving it some authenticity, and if I'm not mistaken, the soundtrack actually won a couple of awards back in the day. The voice work is acceptable, the dialogue is very tongue-in-cheek, and the lines are delivered appropriately for the material. To sum up, I come away from Tony Hawk's Underground feeling incredibly nostalgic for the good old days of extreme sports games. This game may hold less value for you if you weren't playing games in the days when this series was literally the biggest thing going, but there is still plenty of fun to be had. Time has been cruel to the graphics and animation, but its gameplay is exactly what you'd come to expect from this series in its heyday. There is an argument to be made that this is one of the best Tony Hawk games ever made, and in all honesty, if you've never played them before, the easygoing, wacky open world is a great place to start.